Hello, hello. Um, Let me just check over here. Say hi. I see Sarah's already here. Um, and Sorry for the background noise. There are some dogs next door. Hopefully, I won't have to be dealing with that in about a month or so. And hello, Maria, as well. So how are you all doing? How's your week going? So this is now day 3 in July, and so the start of this week. And hello, Camila. And so the start of this week, there were a few tech issues with the recording tools. One of them, more specifically, the SpeakPipe voice recorder. And I noticed that a lot of people were getting frustrated with that, and then looking into, as I've mentioned, other tools that are out there like Voice Spice, Vocaroo, Clip It, and then ways to upload and save on a server like on Google Drive. And with the and I want to just say hello, Aliona, who's also watching here. Just checking a comment on Facebook there. Okay. So yeah, with the recording tools, this kind of tech issue that we've had is it's kind of like a blessing in disguise, because now this is just kind of bringing a little bit more of a need. Thinking in further details here about what would an app, a speaking challenge app, look like. I had asked that question towards the end of June, and we got some interesting, or not specifically the speaking challenge app, but maybe kind of what kinds of apps do you like using. And I'm trying to brainstorm a little bit more in terms of, I'd like to have something that would include the daily prompt, include the question, perhaps have the question translated from English into your target language. In the start of July, at one participant's suggestion, I've started to add some vocabulary and a few phrases and grammatical structures that I would suggest in case somebody is learning English, and observations I've made based on corrections I've seen in English lessons. So that's giving some food for thought. I saw a message from Nikki Crane in one of her recordings so far this month, and she said that she had appreciated those suggestions. It was a way to just brainstorm a few other related words or concepts. So I'd like to have an app that would include the daily prompt or topic, some related words, their pronunciation, like an audio file or a text-to-speech tool that could pronounce that. Then maybe a text area, so somebody could write down a few notes, perhaps include or integrate the Google translation tool. So it could, if somebody had the simultaneous translation of their native language and something in the target language. I've used that for Arabic, but I always kind of struggled with reading that because I didn't have the script, and I had to listen to the audio file to try to mimic the phonetics before I would make my recording. That took a few extra tries to learn the speech. And then include something for the recording itself, just a simple recording mechanism, and then a review so you could hear the audio before submitting it, and then let that upload to the server, and then have notifications that would be based on the target language and perhaps the native language. Also similar to what is on italki with the notebook entries, where you can filter based on somebody's native language and based on somebody's target language, and then add some comments, add some corrections. And then I'm thinking about perhaps another recording tool that could allow somebody with the comments or the feedback to record a few sentences or take some notes or pronounce a specific word. And then the person who gets that notification, they could add that to their vocabulary list. They could save that, pin it, or make it a favorite or something like that. And then that information, vocabulary or grammar or a phrase, could be added into some kind of a spaced time repetition algorithm, which some people are using already with like Memrise or Anki. So you could have your own list of words to review integrated in the app, so you could review that when you open it, and maybe before you start speaking. I like to look, for example, for my Russian, I've been getting some useful comments and feedback, and I try to look at some of those corrections as I'm getting ready for my next day's recording, so that I can kind of actively use some of those words. But right now, as it is, we have many websites, we have many tools. So we have a recording tool, we have the Google Docs. You might need to open up another browser for Google Translate or a dictionary. There's the email itself, so you can see what the topic is. So I'm not sure how many browsers, or if you have something on the phone or you write it down in a notebook, but it's kind of spread out right now. And I'd like to have some of that stuff brought together into one easy to use tool. And I don't really want the tech to be so much of an obstacle for people to be speaking and practicing the speaking. So even though there were some issues with the recording tools so far, hopefully that was an opportunity to rehearse or to still practice speaking. So in that case, I mean, like, I understand that's frustrating, but on one side, there was practice. There was speaking practice going on, and so that's I've fulfilled that objective to get you guys to speak. But in terms of being able to share those recordings, then it's nice to have something you can trust. And it is a bit frustrating to say, like, okay, I've spoken for 5 minutes, and the microphone was turned off, or that got deleted. So I'm thinking of maybe two microphones. I mean, I have this one with my with the computer, and maybe I have on the cell phone, maybe the two just going simultaneously, so I can have a backup in case I need it. And then if I realize that it worked, maybe I can delete the backup. But just as a way to deal with some of these possible tech issues. But I really want to pursue this idea of an app. I've been looking at just some numbers. Sorry for the background noise again here. Just looking at some basic numbers of what's the minimum to get an app created or started. And it looks like 10,000 seems to be a baseline for a simple, like a very simple mobile app. So yeah, I've learned from a few of my mentors that if you want to get something done, you have to talk about it. So I'm going to keep talking about this app that I would like to get created, and I think the start of this month, having some of those tech issues is just an opportunity to think about that again and go back to the idea of, what would that be helpful? And I think that would be a way to streamline a lot of this, the tech that we're using here. Okay, let me mute myself for a second and take a look at one of these questions. Okay, so Tatiana is asking here, and I also want to say here hello to Leah and Tatiana. Just checking the mic there. Yeah, is it any useful to use any apps if you have an advanced level of a target language, or better just practice speaking? That's a very good question. I notice with the students that I teach that the more advanced you get, the smaller the details you need to fix. When you're at a lower level of the language, everything is kind of new and you start to use it. So you only have one word for big. You only have one word for chair. So you just combine those two and okay, that's a big chair. Once you get into a more like intermediate advanced level, then you're given two words, and then you have to decide between that, and then you have to learn connotation. You have to learn when is it appropriate to use one or the other. So there's more tiny details to keep track of. And I in general, the brain just like it's just overload on tiny details. So I think at an advanced level, it is still beneficial to have some way to keep track of like easy to forget information and nuances on usage, this pronunciation, usage, connotation. Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it slang? So those little kind of details that start to become intuitive and might not be so apparent in a dictionary. So I would find some of those points and the small grammar points as well, like somebody trying to figure out the difference between present perfect and present perfect continuous in English, or future perfect and future perfect continuous. Like those would be smaller, more detailed grammatical points that might not be necessary to look at that at the beginning level. So I think in terms of an app, it starts to become a little bit more tailored to your specific needs. And one idea that I would like to try out, would like to test out going forward with a small test group, but that would not necessarily be for an advanced level. But for a small test group, I'd like to try out something for an accelerated method that might be tailored to what information somebody is known about a person. So like where do you live, what kind of work do you do, what are your interests, your hobbies, what are people who are in your daily life who you interact with, what's some information that you know about those people. And it's not at all with a sense of like being invasive or trying to gather information, but it's just to take familiar information and then turn that into language learning content. So that's something that I would like to try out for an accelerated method. But for that kind of a project, I think I'm looking for people who are at a more just after the beginning stage of learning language and getting into like pre-intermediate. So that's like another one of these projects that I'm constantly imagining. Let me look at a comment here from Leia. So I've definitely practiced for an extended period of time the other night. SP SpeakPipe, okay, one chance, then went to another. So yeah, with the recording tool, just test it for 5 seconds, make sure, like, see if the microphone is working, try to save that. If it worked, if it just does the loading and then oops, move on to something else, or have 2 recording tools going on simultaneously. I kind of just gave up a little bit on SpeakPipe and have just started using my camera here with the microphone and just save that to the computer and upload it to Google Drive. That just seemed to be a little bit easier to guarantee that the recording would still be there and not just get lost. So, let me check on another thing here. Okay, so and what are some other issues that have come up or questions? I didn't see any specific questions for the when I was announcing here for today. But if you have questions, please leave those here. I can see that there's a couple of us here, and also for my voice, I am have a little bit of a cold, but I'm fine for talking here for a little bit more. What were some other things that have come up? Going back to this idea for the advanced level apps, I guess it really depends on why you specifically want to improve in this language. So if it's travel, if it's conversation, is it for work? Is it for pleasure? I think some of those details could play a role in determining like which apps would be more useful or more helpful. And let me just check some other comments here. So, okay. And okay. And if you're kind of brainstorming as well, thinking about like if there was an app for the speaking challenge and trying to get that to work or test it out, what features would you want it to have? What would you want it to do, like an essential feature, and what would be just I probably wouldn't use that. I would use something else. So just an idea there. Okay. And also let me know a little bit, like, what are some of your goals this month, since we're kind of just getting started in July. And I'd like to be able to help you with those goals or try to integrate some of those topics into the daily prompts on there as well. So I don't see too many comments here, but if any of you would like to actually join me here, since we have a small group, let me get the link here. So let me ask, like, would any of you like to join me now? So I will. So you don't have to be on camera. You can just join with voice. Let me check here. Well, I'll put the link here, and if any of you decide to join. Sorry about that noise. Okay, another comment here from Leia. So I feel like I'm dependent on my scripts. Okay. So with scripts, and for example, here for Greek, I think I had something similar with Arabic, where I was just using very limited short sentences, very targeted vocabulary. And after 6 months, I don't remember any of it. I had a hard time getting my head around that. The scripts themselves don't have to be a problem. I think a lot of people speak about scripts in a negative way, as if like it's some form of cheating. I don't see it that way. I think it is helpful. I think it's a way for you to learn some new vocabulary words that you would like to use. It's a way for you to review a little bit of some grammar. And I also realize, like, if I have my script on one device or one browser and I'm trying to look at the recorder, my short-term memory might just it'll fade. So I'd like to be able to see my script as I'm recording. I'm struggling with that making videos for social media, for example, for Instagram. So sometimes I'm looking at the screen and reading what I wrote, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to forget what I wanted to say, and that's even in my native language. So I don't see a script being a bad thing. I think the active memory part, it would be good to try to activate that as much as you can, because in a conversation with a person, you wouldn't have a script. You would have to improvise and respond to, well, how are you? And then, okay, how are you? What did you do this weekend? And try to come up with a few ideas. But scripts can help you prepare a few possible ideas to approach a few questions. I would try to take, I guess, some of those scripts, put them on flashcards or some of the phrases, and maybe put them back and forth on native language, target. See if you can activate some of those phrases that you want to be able to use without thinking about them. I think if it's just in the notebook, it's probably just a lot of information. But if you could put this into flashcards, that could help you trigger your active memory with those phrases. One thing you could do is maybe on one side record an audio file of questions that you would like to be able to answer, and then leave some space in those questions. So you could have, I don't know, 10, 20 questions that you would like to ask, kind of like a Pimsleur prompts, where that's usually 20 to 30 minutes of dialogue and getting you to answer stuff. But you could create your own file with questions that you'd like to be able to practice, then leave some space for like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And throughout the day, try to listen to some of those questions and try to trigger, can you respond to that question? Maybe record yourself responding to the questions and then review those later and see how many vocabulary words were you able to activate later. But do it step by step. I think when there is the kind of just pencil paper, like as you mentioned here, you finding ways to incorporate some of these tech tools if possible, or just simple paper flashcards, or turn those into these kind of audio flashcards. Just seeing a little bit what Sarah has commented as well. So I just bought a book about Spanish grammar, but it's in French. Okay, so the language laddering there, and that'll be interesting to work through. Yeah, I think that's kind of the reverse of my own experience, where I did 2 years of Spanish in high school. Then French was accelerated because of my foundation in Spanish. And then now I'm in a bilingual, trilingual environment where there's a lot of material for Spanish and French. So like all of the communication that's for the parents, the emails that I receive from my kid's school, there's a French version, there's the Spanish version. So I have to go to these meetings, parent meetings, and the administration. They're either saying something in Spanish and then translating, or say something in French, or back and forth. Nothing's in English. So I'm listening to 2 foreign languages at the same time, and going to some of those meetings. But doing the 2 languages, it gets easier the more you are exposed to that. And having a bilingual text allows you to recognize some common structures or shared vocabulary. In June, and Sarah says again, in June I made recordings in Polish, and I always used scripts. I wrote them in my notebooks and added the feedback that I got. Yeah, so some of the things there on the feedback. So yeah, having a script is not a bad thing. Take it, just make it manageable. And then try to integrate some of the feedback, some of the corrections that you get into your next day's recording. Even if it's just one new word or one new phrase, see if you can use that, and then use more of it. Because the feedback that we get here in the speaking challenge, it's always kind of are people using it? People want it, but then are they using it? So that's kind of like, if you don't get feedback, you're frustrated, you don't know if you're improving, but then when you get the feedback, maybe there's too much feedback, and then it's like, well, I didn't do anything with the feedback. So it gets kind of a question there of how should we manage that, and how should we work with it and integrate it. But yeah, use it or lose it, as Sarah is saying here. And Leonis, several years ago, I put different types of flashcards literally everywhere in my apartment. It helped me to improve, prepare for my exam. That's a great idea. There was another language blogger, Agnieszka Murdoch. Her website is 5 Minute Language. And in one of her language courses, she mentioned this kind of a concept where spaced time repetition software is going to ask you to review words if you haven't seen them in a while, or if they're more difficult. And she took this concept and made it offline with her flashcards, and where some of these more difficult words that she would need to see at a certain frequency, she would associate that with somewhere in her apartment or her home with that level of frequency. So, for example, if something was just once a day or twice a day, that could be where she has her shoes. Since you put them on before you leave, and then you take them off when you get in, so that could be just once or twice. Something that would be a higher frequency word that needs to be reviewed regularly, that might be somewhere like next to her cell phone in case she gets a notification or something, and maybe just you create a little bit of a kind of a delayed gratification of checking your phone. You go through a set of vocabulary words. And then because of notifications or that time that you want to reach your phone for something, you end up reviewing these flashcards in a much more frequent basis. Or if something is less frequent, maybe next to, I don't know, the toothbrush, maybe the refrigerator, maybe next to the TV remote control. So some way to integrate this kind of higher frequency, less frequency with those words, and then you kind of move them around as you realize, like, I'm familiar with that word, I don't need to see it as much, or no, I'm not activating it enough, I need to move this over here to a more frequent place. So I like that idea. That I got that idea from her, from this using those flashcards physically in different places. And then there's also the physical location memory. You might start to trigger a few of the words when you're in a certain area. So that there are some ways to combine some of those memories. Like recently, for my daughter's birthday party, it's kind of a weird association, but because of the food that we were eating for that morning, we had pretzels, which my family, I mean, I love pretzels, but we don't normally buy them as a snack. So we just had them for that party. And at the time, at that morning, I was just drinking a lot of coffee and snacking on pretzels. So all of a sudden, now that we had like an extra bag of pretzels lying around in the kitchen, if I was drinking coffee and snacking on a couple pretzels, suddenly I was remembering my daughter's birthday party and remembering the people who were there and remembering that memory, just triggering it based on the combination of the food or something. So that's a way you could also trigger some of these vocabulary words. As like at an office where I used to work, I don't work there anymore. At my 10-minute break, like the cigarette break kind of thing, I don't smoke, but I would go down with my colleagues. They would get their cigarette, and I would go to the corner shop and just buy some of these cookies. And I wasn't eating those cookies before I worked at that office. So now if I happen to see those cookies or buy them, suddenly I get all these triggered memories from that time period when I was working at that office. So you can use food and you can use some of the smell. Yeah, like a memory palace. You should definitely check out Anthony Bativier. He's much more of an expert on the memory palace concept and how to integrate that. But I do notice on these things of food association, smell, taste, location, sometimes with a podcast playlist, or just if it's songs, if it stays in a specific order, that's better, because then I can trigger memories of where I was when I listened to that song in that order. So I don't like so much of a random playlist. If you want to use a playlist as a way to track time, in the mornings on our piano, there's a demo button, and it'll play like 10 songs. And little by, well, now the kids are going to be finishing school, but little by little, I've started to realize, like, oh, that song, it's now been like 10 minutes since I turned on that demo list. So I know I need to hurry up on getting the kids ready for school. Or this thing next door with all the dogs, I know that place opens at 7 in the morning. So I hear that trigger with the dogs. I'm like, okay, I definitely need to hurry up, get them dressed, get them their breakfast. So I can have some sound triggers as well. So try to integrate as much as you can with activating vocabulary. If it's smell, if it's a physical location, if it's a playlist, if it's some ding or notification. So integrate some of that stuff. Get creative with it and see how that can kind of work. Again, with the smell, sometimes I take shampoo or soap back from a hotel after a vacation. And then weeks or months later, I might go open up that shampoo bottle, that little mini thing they give you, or the soap, and that brings me back to that hotel. So sometimes it's a way to just hold on to reactivate some of those memories. So you can do that perhaps with a vocabulary list of some sort. And let me go back here to Camilla. So besides the 30-day speaking challenge, what else do you recommend to maintain the level? Because currently I don't have a short-term aim anymore with my target language. Just don't want to lose what I've learned. At some point, like new, more is too much. It's sometimes a good idea to go back, review what you have done, consolidate it. I learned a little bit about that from Shannon Kennedy, her website, Eurolinguist. I had interviewed her about 3 years ago, and she was telling me about her notebooks, and that she would do what was called like a distillation. That seems like a reference to the gold list method. And I really like that idea because over the years, I've started to associate a refrigerator concept with words, vocabulary, structures that you've learned. At some point, if you put food in a refrigerator, it goes bad if you don't use it. And the problem sometimes is you put stuff in there and you didn't check when you bought it. You don't write down like, oh, I bought this and I'm putting it in now. So you can remember, is it fresh, or how long ago did I have that? So I think this idea of taking some of your vocabulary, taking some of your notes, and then moving it over to somewhere else and realizing like you want to keep it fresh. You want to be able to use it, not forget it. And if something is just, you're not using it, just maybe get rid of it. And then, just kind of hold on to some of the more essential vocabulary words that you're using. But yeah, language exchange partner, that would be another good recommendation here from Sarah. And let's see also here, but maybe also get yourself into a situation where you're the more advanced learner than somebody who's more of a beginner. That's a way for you to review and share what you've learned and teach a little bit. Sometimes you don't realize how advanced you are when you start to see somebody who's a beginner or just getting started, and then you can review and remember that experience from a couple months ago or a couple years ago and refresh some of that and go, oh yeah, now I remember that. My wife is doing that right now with Game of Thrones. I mean, that's like 7-8 seasons of videos. She had watched it all the way to like season 5. Then I got interested. So she watched everything with me. And then after almost every other episode, she was like, oh, that now I understand something that she had seen more recently. Now she's got a Kindle and she's reading the books, and she's stuck in like the first season of the content and going, oh yeah, that makes. So she's constantly refreshing her memory. So she had seen the series like a second time, and then now she's going back and looking at the books for the first time. So she's refreshing her memory and she's connecting things that were not so obvious that first time around. So those connections get deeper, and they stay longer. There's a more meaningful connection with that information. So I think with the language learning, if you're getting to an intermediate advanced level, go back, look at the beginner level, look at it again, do it again, kind of an accelerated way. See if you can fill in the gaps on some of that like, because when it's a beginner thing, you might miss certain details, but when you go back and look at it again, you can kind of fill in some of that stuff and realize like, oh, okay, now I understand a bit better. And Leia and I did that, and I want to just also say hello to Mernaz or Ibrahim. I did that with both French and German growing up. I put them everywhere and updated them or added them. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, for the memory palace and gloss, I guess. Do you think you should focus on the target language alphabet or the pronunciation guide? Oh, yeah, that's a little tricky. I think if you use the pronunciation guide for too long, it becomes like a crutch that you end up having to use, and it can kind of slow down a little bit that learning process. I was trying to work on Arabic. I think I had a good first step, and then I got lazy. And then when I got lazy, I didn't go back to the alphabet again. I just stayed lazy and was using the Google Translate and using some of the phonetics. And I realized like my pronunciation was it was terrible because I was using the pronunciation guide and not really intuitively understanding the phonetics or the pronunciation of the language within the language, if that makes sense. I was still dependent on the transliteration. And then I know transliteration, there are more concepts in the alphabet that don't exist in English. So I know I was losing details. So it was like taking a color painting and making it black and white with a pronunciation guide. So, and unfortunately, I think that affected also my pronunciation, reading that pronunciation guide and then so going from black and white back to color, it doesn't always work well. You lose certain details on there. And say hello, Bante Im. Could you tell me if these are grammatically correct? Okay. There's a pen. There is not a pen. There is not a pen. What are you talking about? There's not a pen on the table. Maybe maybe in plural, there aren't any pens, or I don't see a pen. There's no pen. There is no pen. There's no pen on the table. There's not any pen. There's no any pen. No. Is there a pen? Yes. Is there not a pen? Isn't there a pen? Isn't there a pen there? What is there? What isn't there? That's an interesting question. Yeah, what isn't there? Everything. But that's a good question. Let me hold on to some of that stuff. That would probably make a great topic for an Instagram post for some of those ones. I'll try to copy paste that one. Okay. And Sarah's asking or saying, yesterday I met with a woman from Chile for a real life language exchange. It was great, and I could speak way more Spanish than I initially thought. Yeah, language exchange in that context, it's great because we have like a self-limiting perception of ourselves, and quite often, if I've shared this anecdote about the elephant, the baby elephant, which its leg is tied to a stake, so it's not strong enough when it's a baby to break the rope and the stake, and for some reason, when it becomes an adult elephant, it still has its leg just tied with this tiny little piece of rope, but in its head, it doesn't think it can break it. So it has this kind of self-limiting perception. And I would say, like, in my own business stuff of like language teaching and trying to come up with programs, I probably have to deal with a couple self-limiting beliefs as well. I was saying like, well, I haven't launched that course yet. So I'm not quite sure am I ready yet to do that? So I don't feel ready. so sometimes you kind of have to test yourself and just see, well, I kind of failed, but now I'm ready for the next time. So like this past week, I was launching, in addition to the speaking challenge, I was launching a TOEFL speaking kind of a 1 week thing. And I guess I was a bit too confident on the tech tools that we're using, because I've been using all these tech tools with you guys in the speaking challenge and saying, oh, SpeakPipe, that should be obvious now. A Google form, that should be obvious now. And on my website, there were some website issues, tech issues with the server being moved to a dedicated IP, just really bad timing when you want to launch something. You want a website that works and a payment gateway that works. So I had all of the mistakes, all the problems. Website was not working. SpeakPipe was not working. The people trying to use the Google Drive or the Google form, not being able to submit the recording. So it just had all these little things going on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like just huge headache. But now I'm ready for the next time I launch that program. I can say, okay, I've gone through all of the broken things, all of the mistakes, and have a backup plan. And maybe just let's start with a backup plan. But with a language exchange going like, well, I didn't quite think that my Spanish was that great. It's a way to test yourself, because I think there's a tendency to just never feel 100% ready. And I think we get ready through the difficult experience, like testing ourselves, seeing how we react, how can we move on or fix that. But so I'm trying to push myself as well on some of these programs, is just be uncomfortable, do something new, try it, make it small. So if there are mistakes or things break, it's on a smaller level, not on a huge, big level. But so yeah, a language exchange with one person is a small dose of the language, as opposed to spending an entire week or entire month in the country. Like it's a small dose to get immersed in that. And from Leia here, so yeah, Galina did that with me last month a few times. I think that's it was wonderful. She listened to my Greek and offered comments, even though she said she didn't know that much. She's a year ahead. Oh, okay, yeah. In terms of, okay, yeah, what I was mentioning there for Camilla of being a little bit more of an advanced or more intermediate learner. So don't discredit yourself if you are able to speak or think or listen to language. That information can definitely be beneficial for somebody else who's just getting started. So it's also a way for you to review what you've learned so far. So it's an opportunity for you to review what you've learned. It's an opportunity for the other person to get kind of a few insights from another learner to see what do they struggle with, what do they need to be aware of. It's also a way for them to get kind of access to your experiences, your teachers, your materials. It's kind of a connection there. So if you still remember things, or you can kind of pass that along to somebody who is learning. Just going back over to Facebook, see if there's other comments over there as well that I didn't get a chance to see. So yeah, there's just right now today, like I mentioned last night, I got a message from my brother on Twitter, and he was mentioning like, one, he said, "Oh, you're famous," and he was referring to an article that he found on Crash Culture. Her name is Jamie. She has participated in a speaking challenge before, and she was nice enough to include the speaking challenge in the list of resources that she recommended. And then my brother told me that he's working on French with Duolingo, and one of his sons, my nephew, is working on Spanish with Duolingo. And I've noticed that when a lot of people reply and say hi to the welcome email, a lot of people mention that they're using Duolingo to get started with a language or refreshing it, and that they were looking for something more, and they discovered the speaking challenge, and so they're like letting me know a little bit about that background. So I'm sometimes trying to figure out ways to, integrate some of the tree vocabulary. I think I found some things a few months ago that was the kind of the corpus, some of the vocabulary lists of how many words are in a particular language. There were a few little hacks and tricks to find out the number per course, and something around like 1,500 or 2,000. And recently I had been mentioning that like 2,000 word as some kind of a core vocabulary, at least for like English. And I'd like to find ways to integrate some of that. I did talk to one or two people this past month and a half on some things about vocabulary. We had a weekly talks about vocabulary and on that. And my main conclusion afterwards, going through and talking and researching that, was not so much about the perfect grammar or perfect or complete vocabulary, but a little bit more the pronunciation and confidence to speak clearly and have intonation patterns that would communicate well, and not so much worrying about remembering a key vocabulary word or struggling with a grammatical sentence. So I started off wanting to research how to learn vocabulary effectively, and I think my conclusion ended up being you can actually accomplish a lot with limited vocabulary if you have a small effective set of vocabulary words that are useful. You can still speak with some confidence, and not necessarily lament that you don't know enough words. So the glass is half full. You can still have a positive mindset of, I know enough words to get by. I hope you didn't hear that. I think I caught the microphone in time. But yeah, I'm probably getting about to the end of this 1 hour that I can not sneeze or cough on camera. But with thank you, Sarah. Gesundheit. Yeah, yeah, very interactive with these videos here. So yeah, with going back here with this question about like how many words to know, or with Duolingo, it's a way to get started, but using the speaking challenge like to supplement that and use it, activate it, I think that's good. I think with Duolingo, it's not so easy to like download that list of words that you know and be able to kind of integrate it into something else. I think a lot of those apps, they want to be protective of, they want to keep you on their platform. So they're not going to be so easy of like, oh, here are the words you learned. Now go take it somewhere else. So with, if I can do a little more hacking, I guess I could try to find some of those core 1,500 or 2,000 words that might be similar along these languages, and try to figure out what are those underlying topics or context that would bring a lot of those words together. So I know on the tree, there's things like shopping, food, and these concepts, but at the top of the tree. But I'd like to integrate a couple of those and say like, okay, for all of you who are familiar with the tree, how could we activate the tree within the speaking challenge? So that could be something interesting. So maybe if a couple of you who are active on Duolingo, and I'm referring to a post that I just put here in the Facebook group, and say, hey, like what's your Duolingo your ID, your link, so we can like follow each other and maybe use that as motivation to follow like a leaderboard. But I'd like to get, in addition to the leaderboard and the points and all that stuff, I'd like to get the vocabulary from there and maybe get the tree and see like how could we how could we make some of the questions simpler, and then say, okay, let's do this element on the tree, and then realize like, are all of the trees the same? Are all the trees similar? It'd be nice to see some of those screenshots. So if some of you have reached the end of your tree, if you could do something like a screenshot of the concepts that are on there, that would be interesting to see what could be done to then go into the review mode of that material. And okay, and let's see also here. So because I know a few people mentioning here over on Facebook related to Duolingo. Let me just look at a couple of those comments that people have mentioned for using Duolingo. So Tatiana says she's using it for Italian and German. Carol is using it for French, German, Spanish, Brazilian, Portuguese, a little bit of Japanese. Mina is using both Memrise and Duolingo for French, and it's good for the European languages. And she likes that it makes her create sentences. She didn't like it for Korean. She thought Memrise was better for Korean. Virag says she's using it for English and some Swedish. Megan goes back from like time to time, but maybe if it's not being actively used. Sarah mentions that she likes to use the Duolingo for the languages, and she's using Dutch for English speakers. She's been able to maintain 6 months there, so that's great. And also French for Spanish, so that's the language laddering. That's cool, to combining those. And for some reason, Polish was less useful for Duolingo. So I'm curious to know why that was less useful. And Celia mentions German and French from English. Okay. Oh, we've got somebody joining here as well. So hello, this is Bante. So how are you doing?
Hello.
Oh. So are you, is this your first time joining the speaking challenge?
Okay, let me stop this. I think it is echoing. I think.
Yeah, this is live for that. So if you don't want to be on camera, okay, you can turn it just the audio as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think now it is okay.
Yeah. Okay. I can see. Yeah. So is this your first time joining the speaking challenge?
Actually, last month I tried to complete that, but unfortunately I couldn't complete it. So I stopped. I was really busy, so I stopped. But I hope to complete it. I don't know, maybe next month. I don't know. Yeah, but I just wanted to join your call and say thank you, because it is kind of interesting. And I really appreciate your dedication. it is hard to find a place like this. You provide free classes, something like this. We can ask questions, and we can take part in challenges. Your course, your 30-day challenge, and I'm a member of that Facebook group as well. So I just wanted to say thank you. So I think I did it.
Thank you for your feedback. I appreciate that very much. And yeah, I do recognize that the first time joining, it can be a lot, and we all have busy schedules and things to take care of, and if we don't find a routine, it can get a bit overwhelming. So
Yeah,
coming back a next time, there's always another opportunity. But that's
yeah.
great
But
that you're
my
joining us
friends,
again.
yeah, yeah. My friends they were able to complete that.
Mm,
I think there are some friends. I don't want to mention their names.
that's right.
Uh, yeah, and they completed 30 days, and I'm happy about them as well. They also appreciate your effort. I mean, it's kind of good thing. So we can find on internet, and I think you can remember Kathy. You were interviewed by Kathy. She is running a
Yes,
Facebook group. Chat box. Yeah, chat box.
yes.
I watched.
Earlier, yeah, in June. Hmm.
I
Excellent. Yeah.
watched interview. I mean the video as well, and I'm a member of that Facebook group as well. So I would say I'm a fan of your. Yeah, I'm a fan of your. Yeah, how can I say? I'm fan of
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I'm a fan.
I'm
Yeah,
fan of
I'm
your.
one of your fans. I'm your fan. Yeah. That, that's very. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
very
okay.
humbled to.
Actually, you were talking. I have a question. You
Hmm.
were talking about kind of app. So do you
Yeah.
have app? So could you please explain? I mean, I don't have any idea about that.
So this is still a brainstorming, and I mentioned this in the email for day 3, based on some of these tech issues that we have had with SpeakPipe voice recorder. Use that their server. I'm not associated with them. I just use that tool, but their server was not working properly, like Monday and Tuesday this week. So a lot of people are a little frustrated with that, and I've mentioned let's try to use another recording tool. But I've received some suggestions from other people as well, like why don't you create your own speaking challenge app? And I'm like, I haven't really considered that much, but but with these tech issues of not really being able to, you can make the recording, but you don't necessarily know, is it going to be saved or you're going to lose it? So having like a plan B or something. And I know some people struggle with copying and pasting the recording link on the Google Docs if they're using a cell phone or they're not using the computer. So some of that stuff can become an obstacle for people who don't want to use so much tech.
Yeah, yeah.
After people
I
get
agree with
used to the
you.
challenge, it gets easier. But at the beginning, it can be a bit, it can be a lot. So
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
like to be able to
Sometimes
integrate.
complicated. Sometimes complicated. But
Mhm.
yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
That's fine. No.
Sometimes the people are not good at tech stuff, just like maybe it is simple for us, but some people don't know even how to record the video and put it on Facebook group, yeah, yeah. It's different cultures and different, you know something is completely different. For an example, I have friends from Russia, so Facebook is not, Facebook doesn't play a big role in Russia. They have their own, apps, something like that. So I was really surprised to hear that. How could it is impossible because Facebook is kind of, it is a big platform.
Mhm.
So maybe you have a point. So some people who are into practicing English, maybe in your Facebook group, I think there are about 700 or 800 members as well by now
Mhm.
in your
Mhm.
Facebook group. So maybe they are into practicing English, but sometimes maybe they are confused how to take part in those things. Maybe there are so many, platforms. Maybe SpeakPipe and yeah, I'm not negative here, but I'm explaining. Maybe that's the reason. Sometimes,
Mhm.
so maybe this is the point you are talking about. I'm not. Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
on the
just want
tech
to say
side. So
something.
yeah, I think there are opportunities to maybe make more uh, uh,
Simpler.
tutorial videos of this is how this works on a computer. This is how
Mm-hmm,
it works on the phone. Um,
mm-hmm.
to maybe make a somewhat of a library of some of those resources for how to get started. So the the initial emails,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a lot of content, but it would be nice to have some of that as a visual or audio step walkthrough. So
mm-hmm.
that's a good point. I know there are. I mean, it's also probably a good way for me to get into a little more of the video courses, but I could move some of that material over to an open enrollment course and say, here are videos to, like, if you're new to the program, go check out these videos to see how everything works.
Yeah,
There was a suggestion as well to get a translation of the instructions, so that
yeah,
that
yeah.
has helped a little bit as well. So
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
community
that,
feedback is very helpful to know how to improve this.
yeah. So, what about this app? So you are gonna update it, or so you are working on that. So, what
Well,
are the features, coming features? Would you like to? Yeah.
well, the main things would be to just the bare essentials would be to make a recording, maybe have access to a prompt for the day so you can see what to talk about, then record that, and then have a some uh, maybe hashtags or tags, something related to that recording, the person's name, their native language, the target language, the topic, um, and then that gets onto a server, and then the server can then filter so people can listen to it and then leave some comments, some feedback, or maybe even make a recording of some words that were mispronounced or something for the intonation. But right now, that app does not exist, and the idea I'm thinking right now is like maybe a
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter program or a GoFundMe
Oh, I
campaign,
see.
and say some of those apps they require just to get started some minimum that people mention there as a number is like $10,000 as a way to get started on um, just getting something
Yeah, yeah.
functional. But right
Yeah.
now
It
it's
takes
just
a
in my
lot.
head. Yeah.
It takes a lot. If there are. I don't want to mention names here. I can, I have seen there are so many apps where we can practice, brush up on our English. Uh, uh, I know that it takes a lot money, time, maybe human. You have to manage human resource as well.
Mhm.
Sometimes maybe supportive teachers, resource person.
Mhm.
Maybe it takes a lot. It is not easy. So
Mhm.
there are a lot of things you have to have clients. So yeah, I know that it is not so simple. It takes a lot. I agree with you. I know. I think I can understand why it takes time. So if it is possible, you can create a maybe kind of app. Yeah, it would be really nice.
Mhm.
Because I see you are kind of, you are really into this. I mean, teaching, and you are, you dedicate your time, and yeah. I just wanted to appreciate you. So if you have kind of app, yeah, I would be the first person to apply. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
it's been like about two
I have
years.
to.
Yeah. Been 2 years of research to kind of now get to this point. But yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, I just wanted to say a
Mhm.
hi and thank you. I
And
have
thank
to
you.
say
Thank you for joining.
goodbye, because I have, I have another stuff in
Yeah.
the class today. Okay, thank you for your
Thank you
time.
for
Thank you very
joining.
much.
Thank you for
Yeah,
joining, and thank you for your question here. And good luck to you in this month.
yeah. Bye bye.
Great. So, yeah, I love these opportunities to get a chance to hear back from all of you and find out about your experience joining and suggestions. So, yeah, the community is really what moves this project forward, and with your suggestions and these opportunities like here to have a weekly chat is a way for me to kind of keep testing, keep my finger on the pulse and see what are you guys what's on your mind, what are you learning, what are you struggling with, if you're getting to more the advanced level on some of these topics, what are you looking for now. So yeah, I definitely appreciate a lot of your feedback, so I can figure out what are some recommendations, suggestions to help you with that. And okay, great. So it's been a little bit more than an hour now. So I'm just gonna wrap up on anything I see here. And yeah, using the Duolingo. Closemaster is another option there, and for the review. So it looks like most of you are using some of these tech tools, like these vocabulary apps and things, for review purposes. Maybe not necessarily for the learning, the initial learning, but you're looking more for the review part. So I'm going to have to kind of maybe make a poll on there, maybe in the Facebook group as well, of like, are you separating your usage of those tools? Is it more learning or is it review? And where do you feel you need more support? Do you need more support on the review part? Okay. Well, so yeah, so thank you, Leah, Leona, Sarah, Bante for joining here, and Camilla for your questions, and Tatiana for your comments as well, and Maria for stopping by and saying hi. So thank you all. Have a very great day, great start to the month. And I will continue kind of thinking on a few of these topics. And if you have any comments or things that I mentioned here, and if you look at this replay, you can send me an email and have some comments as well. Keep the exchange, this conversation going. But yeah, have a great day. Have a great start to the month. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll try to feel better as much as I can. I don't have other classes today. Today is a more calm day to pick up on stuff. So great. Okay. Talk to you guys soon. We'll be in touch next week for the next week call, and I'll probably set up another event so we can take some questions or comments and anticipate some things that you would like some feedback on. Okay. Take care. Bye for now.